Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays 2022 All-Star. Santiago Espinal has been traded. We'll get into all the details coming up.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We have the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, Braden Wasco, with co-host Carter First. You can find us on Twitter or X, Braden5 Wasco, Carter First too. Also, we have an Instagram page, Locked On Blue Jays, as well as TikTok under the same name. We've noticed a lot of you guys aren't subscribed when watching our videos. It's like 85%. So please drop a subscribe since we're here every day anyway, giving you guys Blue Jays news. Some big news coming from the Blue Jays today. Santiago Espinal has been traded. We do want to get into some spring training talk as well, but the fantasy season is coming up as well. So we're going to break down where the Blue Jays will rank should they make your roster. But today the Blue Jays did drop a 10-9 defeat against the Atlanta Braves, and we'll get into all that. But first, I think, Carter, we should start with the big news of the day. Santiago Espinal has been traded to the Cincinnati Reds. Carter, what were the details?
Yeah, we got pretty lucky as we were recording this podcast. We were just setting up, and we did see the Santiago Espinal news. This has been in the grapevine for a couple weeks now, for sure, maybe even a couple months. We have said on this podcast multiple times that it just didn't really make sense on this team, Santiago Espinal, compared to who we have, who is available to start at second or third base, and just how Espinal has produced in the past. We figured that the Blue Jays were going to move on from Espinal, but I didn't see it coming before the regular season, so that surprised me a little bit. But we do end up engaging in a trade with the Cincinnati Reds. We send Santiago Espinal, the 2022 All-Star, over to the Reds in exchange for right-handed pitching prospect Chris McElvain. McElvain played mostly in single A and high A last season, went going 5 for 5 and had a 3.75 ERA. The Reds drafted Elvain in the 8th round of 2022. So this is a guy, obviously, has not touched the major leagues, hasn't even made Double A yet. Just a prospect the Blue Jays were looking to pick up, trying to get something for Santiago Espinal. Hopefully a guy that we can see down the stretch, probably won't be even sniffing the major league team till 2026, 2027. He is out of the 8th round, so a fairly high pick from the Reds. And it's just nice that we did get something back for Santiago Espinal, considering that it has been a known fact that we've been shopping him for a little while now.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no room, right? IKF, Kevin Biggio, David Schneider, Ernie Clement. There is just nowhere to put Santiago Espinal with the upside of some of these younger guys and more proven guys. Santiago Espinal hasn't given the Blue Jays necessarily a reason to keep him around, especially after the explosive season David Schneider and Ernie Clement had last year and how good they've looked, the two of them themselves, in this spring training. We haven't seen a ton from Santiago Espinal because I think everybody in the back of their minds did know that something eventually was going to come with him. Is this a big shock to you? How do you feel like this trade played out for the Blue Jays?
No, this doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And I think that Santiago Espinal's job was already on the fence going into the season. And then you've seen Ernie Clement turn into prime Barry Bonds this spring training, and he's been going off. And Espinal just doesn't have that upside. So no, this does not surprise me. I am surprised that we did get an 8th rounder out of 2022, considering that it was such a known fact that Espinal had no place on this roster. But like you said, we have just guys that are going to be better for the situations that the Blue Jays have this upcoming season. You got Kevin Biggio, a left-handed hitter. David Schneider's going to be a better hitter than Santiago Espinal. If you want defense, you'll have IKF that'll be able to go in there. And then if you want a little bit more pop, David Schneider, another guy, or Ernie Clement even, like I've been saying, because he's been going crazy this spring training. It's just Santiago Espinal, there's no place for him. He has no more options. You can't send him down to AAA. He would have been had to go through the process of waivers, probably would have been picked up anyway. So it's nice that we got a prospect for Santiago Espinal. And no, it does not surprise me that he's been moved by the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, it is sort of it is sort of funny at the end of the day. I mean, we've called this pretty much since we took over this podcast back in January. And even, when me and you have been sitting on the couch earlier before Christmas, we sort of said, I don't know if Santiago Espinal is going to be on this team this coming year. So it's sort of funny that it did happen before the start of the regular season. I know you touched on that. I was a little bit shocked that it happened now, right at the end of spring training. Usually you'd see something where a guy gets moved before they head into spring training so that they can get a spring training with their new team, or they finish out their spring training with their current squad and then get moved in the regular season. So the timing of it is a little bit shocking to me. Because since, we are 8 days away or 7 days away now from the start of regular season, it's going to be a quick move for him. And it'll be interesting to see what the Cincinnati Reds do with Santiago Espinal.
Yeah, they definitely will have a lot more use than we will for Espinal. And this move just makes it clear to me that Ernie Clement will be on the opening day roster. You don't make this move if you're going to send Ernie Clement back down to AAA. What he's doing is taking Espinal's spot, which is great for the Toronto Blue Jays. For a team that hasn't been able to hit in the last season, see Ernie Clement doing this amount of damage this early on in spring training, it is good to see. So hopefully they do end up giving Ernie Clement the chance. And best wishes to Santiago Espinal. It's nice that he finally will have more of a full-time role with the Cincinnati Reds. Didn't have any room for the Blue Jays. Went over that a few times already. And best wishes. I know Vladdy and Bo will be missing Espinal as they are pretty good buddies. And that might be the reason why Espinal was here for such an extended period of time. That he wasn't making a ton of money to begin with, but you do have that relationship with some of the superstars on this team. So it made sense for them to keep him. And this move also does clear around $2.7 million for cap space for the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, it's not our money. There's no salary cap. Doesn't really matter, but that is an extended reason why Espinal was moved before the regular season.
Well, and we've talked a lot about Ernie Clement and the sort of the explosive year that he had last year, and then going to spring training, it only is getting better. And to talk about that, let's head into a little bit of spring training news. And Ernie Clement again goes 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored. Another big day for the guy. Talk about a guy solidifying his place on this team. He has done that to the extreme this spring training.
If this guy doesn't crack the opening day roster, if he's not hitting 6-7 in this lineup, I think me, along with all the other Blue Jays fans, are going to be very upset. I'm hoping that they don't treat this like a Davis Schneider thing where he just plays the first week, maybe doesn't start off as hot as he did in spring training, and then they don't play him. I think you got to give Ernie Clement a couple weeks just to at least fit in with the Toronto Blue Jays roster. He's not used to starting opening day with all the guys. Let him settle in, let him get the nerves a little bit off his back, and hopefully he can continue the tear he's been on in spring training, along with a lot of other Toronto Blue Jays players like Dalton Varsho, as we've said on this podcast, has been really good. Vladdy hit another bomb today. That's always a good sight to see. That new swing that he has, the swing techniques that he has changed are looking great so far. So if Ernie Clement can be the spark plug for this offense this upcoming season, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think Ernie Clement has proven himself time and time again. When we threw him in last year, he was playing well. And then in spring training, obviously we've seen it's just some explosiveness from it. And in talking about some explosiveness, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 1 at bat today, 1 home run, and then he's calling it a day. So I love to see that from him getting into the lineup. Sort of interesting as well, right? Yeah, only has 1 at bat and makes the most of it. This is a guy that is that is going to be his brand of baseball this year, where he wants to make the most out of every at bat that he's in.
Oh, and this home run wasn't hit off a bum either. This was the Braves closer, Raisel Iglesias. So another guy that has hit a home run against a really good pitcher. Again, it was the first inning. He's not used to coming in the first inning in a spring training game where nothing really matters compared to the 9th inning, usually of a 1 or 2 run game where he's going to have to close and maybe the adrenaline is a little higher. But you can't take that away from Vladdy. He's had a good spring training. The home run numbers from Vladdy are a sight to see. It's nice that he is making some progressions and it's hit his 3rd home run of the spring training, and that he is pulling baseballs. I say it on this podcast all the time. When Vladdy pulls baseballs, this Toronto Blue Jays team is going to be looking good and fans are going to be happy. So that home run got me fired up. And as we were only 7 days away from the regular season, as we are recording this podcast, the more power that we can get from the Toronto Blue Jays team, the better position we're going to be in, especially with the elite pitching staff we do have on this team.
For sure. And talking about more home runs, another guy that we love to talk about, Daniel Vogelbach, has also hit one, going 1 for 3 today, of course, with the home run. So another guy that we love to watch hit home runs because he's got sort of that not awkward swing, but a little unconventional swing. And when he hits a ball, you can tell just by the way that he follows through on the baseball that it's launched. And every time he hits a home run, it sort of gives me the goosebumps almost. Like That is the guy, when he hits a home run, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for some regular season baseball.
Every time I see Vogie hit a home run now, I just think of that bum Garrett Cole and how he just absolutely owns that guy. So Vogelback is going to be one of those guys that's coming off the bench. If he can provide that power, that's going to be great for the Toronto Blue Jays, a team that was not hitting a lot of home runs last season. And like you said, Vogie's swing is a little unconventional. So when he hits these home runs, it's like, how does this guy even do that? But then if he swings and misses, it's like, how is this guy even in the major leagues? But it is so funny when he does make contact because the ball goes so far. I think that ball today hasn't landed. It's somewhere in there in space, maybe with some asteroids, maybe some of the space stations that were lost, things like that. So with Vogelback, what you see is what you get. It's not going to be an average hitter. He's swinging for power. He's swinging for the fences every single time he's at the plate. And that is something that the Toronto Blue Jays need. And I think he's going to be a fan favorite going down the stretch.
For sure. And just a couple more spring training things that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I'll sort of run through them as they're not super important, but just some other things. IKF 1 for 3 today. Eduardo Escobar over 3. Nathan Lucas went actually 3 for 3 today with a good day from him. And David Schneider over 3 again. I'm not putting too much into these necessarily bad ones because we know that he's a power hitter. And when he does connect on a baseball, he's hitting it hard. That's what we like to see. Sort of an off day for Bowden Francis today. 4 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits given up, 4 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, only 1 home run given up though, which is good to see. I think like when you're talking about giving up 4 home runs, at least he wasn't doing it where he's giving up a ton of long balls. So not terrible there. Zach Pop got lit up a little bit today. Gave up 2 hits, 2 runs, only 1 earned though. Nate Pearson came in for 2/3 of an inning, gave up a hit and a run as well. And Carter, of course, the big thing, we're getting to the time of the year when baseball fantasy is kicking into high gear. I know we have our draft tonight, actually. So we'll be, dialing into that. And we've sort of made a list of where some of these Blue Jays will place, some guys to stay away from, some guys to look forward to, who to pick in your top 10. Most leagues in baseball running a 10-man league. So that's what we've based it on. So yeah, we'll get into all that next. And today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament. You're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes us at Locked On and most of the big pro sports leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well we might throw in. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Of course, say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Tonight, I know a lot of, or last night, there was a lot of 3 NHL games. I bet on all of them because I'm a complete degenerate. And, I've been up and down lately. I went through a bit of a losing spell, back on a winning streak. And then, so FanDuel's been really helping out. I've been using their pre-made parlays, their same game pre-made parlays. The best place to go. They have them already made. They give you a little bit of a boost usually when you use them. And you can see how many other people are riding with you, which is also a fun thing. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. So, Carter, I've been waiting for this segment for a long time. As a lot of our regular listeners may know, we are big fantasy guys. We play fantasy football, we play fantasy hockey, and we play fantasy baseball. And baby, it's time for some fantasy baseball action. Of course, I've done a couple mock drafts up to this point, sort of getting ready for the season. Carter, I know you've taken a look at the top 200 players as well. What we're going to do is Carter is going to let us know where some of the Blue Jays rank in the top 200. And I will go, I sort of did an average out of a few mock drafts and where they've placed as well. So we'll sort of compare and see, how the people feel compared to how the quote unquote experts feel. Carter, why don't you start us off with one of our number one guys?
Yeah, the top rated player they have for this fantasy season, believe it or not, is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And on the top 200 list, they have him at 26. That's between Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, with Corey Seager being behind him. He's also the 5th first baseman out of this list. So there's 4 more first basemen that are above Vladdy. How do you feel about these rankings? And are you taking Vladdy in the middle of the second round?
No, probably not. Maybe I would say I think Vlad is more of a there are a lot of good or decent enough first basemen that I think Vladdy could be a 3rd round, maybe a 4th round, depending on obviously your league's biases. Our league is heavily Jays based. So he might go early in some of ours, but I think a 3rd round, maybe early 4th round pick is where Vladdy should be. Most of my mock drafts had Bo Bichette in that early 3rd round at the 23rd overall pick, and then Vladdy right after him at 24. So for me, the shortstop position, there's a big drop off. If you don't get one of those top 7-6 guys, you are missing out, and there's going to be a bigger jump. So I think getting Bo Bichette earlier and then going into Vlad, who maybe you can spot another first baseman somewhere, might be a better option for you, but I wouldn't reach into the 1st round. Maybe if you have a really good feeling about Bo or Vlad, you can take them in the late 2nd, but I wouldn't go higher than that right now.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you had Vladdy going in the middle of the 3rd round, because I realized, clearly not a math guy, that they do have Vladdy going in the middle of the 3rd round.
29.
26
Yeah, 26
would be in the middle of the 3rd round. I'll take the L on that one. It is what it is. Okay, but moving on, I do have Bo Bichette actually coming up next, who is 32, which would be the start of the 4th round. Like you said, I wouldn't mind taking Bo over Vladdy, because Bo is definitely a safer pick with these shortstops, like we've gone over before in our power rankings, even like without fantasy. But with fantasy, there's another one in there for the shortstops. Top 8, a guy that I wouldn't mind going a little bit higher on. I think the start of the 4th round is a little late for him. In our drafts, I wouldn't be surprised if he's going in the middle of the 2nd round just because of the Jays bias. But let's shortstop position, you got a lot of good players. You got Mookie Betts, who's playing there now. You got Lindor, who's a good hitter. You have Trey Turner, Corey Seager. There's so many good players from the shortstop position that it's not a bad idea to grab one of these early shortstops, because with the positional advantage you're going to have if you draft one in the earlier rounds, it's going to fall off pretty quickly. So I don't mind taking a little bit of a reach on one of the shortstops this upcoming draft. But moving on into the next pitcher, actually, for the Toronto Blue Jays, the first one and one of 3 in the top 200 is Kevin Gausman. And they have him going in the late 4th between Randy Arozarena and Adolis Garcia. Braden, where do you have Kevin Gausman in your rankings?
So yeah, where he sort of fell to with me, and when I did these, I made sure to not try to get into just a regional mock draft, because then I wanted to see where everybody would fall without some Blue Jays bias. So Kevin Gausman ended up going middle of the 5th round at 44th overall. And I think this is safe for him. I think, you know what you're going to get with Kevin Gausman. I wouldn't mind going a tad earlier if you're looking to get a pitcher early, but there's so many starting pitchers that'll get the job done. So I wouldn't reach on him too heavily. Again, in our draft, of course, Blue Jays players are going to go early, and Kevin Gausman's probably going to be the first. I would hope that he's the first Blue Jays pitcher taken. But there is an argument for the next guy on the list, and that's Jordan Romano. I'll say he did go in the 8th round at 76th overall. I think for a reliever, nobody's picking a reliever too early. I mean, obviously it depends on league settings, everything like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think reaching on a reliever is a great option. I think there's lots that you can take later. But if you want a solid reliever and you play where some people have pitchers and relievers separately. I know that's how our league works. So maybe picking Jordan Romano in this 8th round wouldn't be a miss here. I think that's pretty clear and evident that that's where he fits in.
See, and the websites I looked at, Jordan Romano, they had him averagely going at the early 10th round. So they have him going a little bit later. There are a lot of guys that are probably going to be better than Jordan Romano. I mean, Josh Hader with the Astros, he's going to be insane. Evan Diaz is going to be back. Emmanuel Clase with the Cleveland Guardians. I'm on the same boat as you. I don't think I'd be ever picking a closing pitcher that early on. You're not going to get the innings out of them. Yes, you'll probably get the strikeouts, as most closers' strikeout numbers are insane. I think Jordan Romano's case for 9 are around between 11 and 12, so that is really good. But I feel like you're going to get more positional value based off like outfielders, just starting pitchers in general, things like that. I wouldn't go Jordan Romano that early personally, but I do understand if maybe the early closers really matter and they do like those save categories. So if you get those, but Jordan Romano is going to get a ton of saves. So you want to reach on him. I don't hate that. It's going to be a safe choice. You know what you're going to get out of Jordan Romano. He's going to be the dog of the Toronto Blue Jays for this upcoming season. So the next player that I have just barely cracking the top 100 is George Springer. He's in the middle of Spencer Torkelson and Dylan Cease, just recently getting traded there. I thought that was interesting. How do you feel about George Springer? And are you a little bit worried about his production based off his lackluster year last season?
Yeah, I wouldn't go George Springer in the top 100. I have him sort of at the 12th round, going about 115 on average. So I think that even that might be a slight reach because it is a little bit unclear how this season will go for George Springer. I'd say to try to get him later. There are a lot of other outfielders that will probably get you more points this season. But if you're looking to grab somebody, yeah, I wouldn't be going George Springer in the top 100 for sure. And I probably wouldn't even go him in the top 12 rounds here.
Well, guys, they have underneath him, they have ex-Blue Jay Teoscar Hernandez, Evan Carter, who is ridiculous as a rookie last season in Texas. Lane Thomas, another good option here. I'm personally taking Anthony Santander over him, and they have him rated lower. So there are a few guys that I think are definitely safer than George Springer, but George Springer is George Springer. He is one of the best leadoff hitters to ever do it. A guy that I can definitely see having a bounce back season, and he's already been showing it in spring training, hitting above 300. So just before we get into our last couple of rankings here, I did want to throw it to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. Our college shows are actually previewing some of their tournament games on this Locked On streaming channel. So it's a great opportunity if you're into college sports to go see whoever team that you have winning the championship. Our experts will be covering it. So that's a perfect opportunity. Obviously, NHL, NBA, all that stuff still going on. So whatever sports you want to digest, go over to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel and subscribe. Today's episode is also sponsored by Prize Picks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for the playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Like I said before in that Lost National ad read there, the college tournaments are starting. Our experts are the best choice you have at digesting some sports content. So they're going to be covering everything over there. And you have another opportunity to take advantage of this and your knowledge with Prize Picks. So my picks today, I'm not too big into college basketball, so I'm going to stick with what I know a little bit better with hockey. And we are in the fantasy semifinals in our personal NHL league. So I'm going to roll with some of my guys on my fantasy team. And I'm going to go with Adrian Kempe over points. Anze Kopitar, not on my fantasy team. He's playing with Kempe. I'm going to go with him over points. And then I did have John Tavares over points. And I know as we're recording this, he does have an assist. So that one is hitting right now. So if you want to test your skills on Prize Picks, you could easily turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. So go over to Prize Picks and download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, Carter, I don't want to spend too much time because I do want to go over the entire first round here and where guys should go. So I'm going to list off just sort of the last few Blue Jays that we should go over that might fall into that if you're doing a 10-team league, probably into the top 230. ranking, I have Chris Bassett actually lower than George Springer, going around the 11th round at 105. Jose Barrios at the 17th round at 162. Varsho just over the 20th round, so just outside of the top 200 at 202. Justin Turner, actually, a guy that we've seen get picked up quite a bit in the late rounds here at the 22nd round at 212. And Yusei Kikuchi, actually, which I think he could debatably go lower than this or higher, however you want to say it.
Pick him earlier in drafts.
Yes. So he was averaging about 223rd spots, so the 23rd round, the final round. I think you could take Yusei Kikuchi a little bit earlier and to round out your pitching depth as well. I sort of wanted to go over some guys maybe to stay away from, some guys that got snubbed. I will say Garrett Cole wasn't projected until the 18th round, going 174th. I think you should take Garrett Cole earlier than this, as much as I hate to say that. I think that he got snubbed in these mock drafts. I think take him earlier, grab him. And then they have Gabriel Moreno, drafted 200th on the nose. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like he's going to have a down year. If I would look to other catchers first before I went, and probably try to take a catcher earlier, since there's not a ton of amazing catchers. I'd say that would be something to get probably in your top 6-7 rounds, is to get a solid catcher and obviously see where they fall. I feel like catchers are a lot like goalies. There's only a certain many that are so good. So I think taking them earlier in that like opening, 5th to 7th round is probably perfect if you can lock down somebody pretty solid like a JT Realmuto. And Shohei Ohtani is only able to be used as a utility this year, it looks like. So I don't know. I'd sort of wait him out. Some people had him in the top 10. He didn't end up falling in the top 10 in any of my mock drafts. And I think that's for good reason. I think there's a lot of other people that you couldn't use in that utility spot. In most leagues, you may only get one. So, it's sort of something to look out for. Not a guy that obviously is going to pitch this year. It's going to be interesting to see where he falls. And we'll let you know sort of after our draft as well, where some of these Blue Jays ended up going. If we got any of them, and maybe throughout the season, we'll sort of keep you up to date on their sort of how they're doing in the fantasy world this season. Carter, a few guys in the top 10, but I have 8 here. I think you draft number 9. I draft number 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 8 guys here, and I want you to tell me who you'd think you'd get at number 9. And there might not be somebody on this list. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Let me know. So going number 1, I think above and beyond, your first pick should be Mookie Betts this season. And that is because he has the positional advantage of playing. He can play 3 different positions, so you can sort of put him wherever. And he's going to put up great numbers for you. I think Mookie Betts is a very solid number 1 option. If you have that pick, if he falls lower than that, I think that's an immediate grab. A few other guys, Ronald Acuna Jr., another guy that could be picked up in that first round, Bobby Witt, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, and Ozzie Albies. Carter, out of all those guys I just named, for you at number 9, who is the most realistic get for you?
For me, I got to go with a guy that has been terrorizing the Blue Jays for a very long time. And I think the only reason he's been held out of the top 8 is due to injury concerns. And for me, it's Aaron Judge. This guy, if he's healthy, he's going to hit over 50 home runs. The upside is there. Maybe you do say the first round's a reach based on these injury concerns. But for me, if you can get Aaron Judge at 9 with that value you're getting, like I know Ozzie Albies, he's a great baseball player, and the second base position in fantasy isn't great. But I'm taking Aaron Judge's upside a million times over Ozzie Albies. This is a guy that has some protection now with Juan Soto in that lineup. So it's going to be interesting how that impacts the Yankees and how teams approach them from a pitching standard. And it's just Aaron Judge. You've seen how much he can do, how he can carry a team to the playoffs. I think Aaron Judge is a very safe pick in my number 9 slot if he does fall to me.
Yeah, I think Aaron Judge is probably going to go earlier. He's another guy I could realistically, I think there's a lot of option for that number 1 to 5 pick, and I definitely could see Aaron Judge being a top 5 pick. For me at number 6, I think, most guys might go with a first baseman here like Freddie Freeman or Matt Olson. Probably not the way I'm leaning. I would probably take like I said, an Ozzie Albies or a shortstop in that position, just to lock down one of those major roles here for myself. I wouldn't personally take a pitcher until probably the third round. I don't know about yourself and what your plan is. Obviously, I don't want you to give away all your secrets, but where would you project your first pitcher being taken?
The only one I can see being taken fairly early, and I think would be in the second round, is Spencer Strider. And that's just based off the strikeout numbers you're going to get from him. He's so disgusting. I mean, him and Kevin Gausman for the strikeouts are going to be probably top 3 in the league. I have Strider leading the league again. So for my draft strategy, for one takeaway, you kind of led onto it a little bit, is I'm definitely not going to be targeting the pitchers, and I'm going to be doing what you said and really playing these positional values. Not as much with Ozzie Albies this early on, but second base, I'm definitely going to be playing up. Third base is another one. There's not a lot of good ones. Catchers, like you said. In the goalie comparison. Sorry, I was missing the word.
There we go. Yeah, I got you.
Comparison there is a very good one, actually, because with a lot of these catchers, tandems now is exactly what they are. They're tandems. You're not getting a catcher that's going to be playing 150, 160 games a year. You're more so going to be getting catchers that are playing maybe 120 as your starting catcher, with another one playing around 60 games. Just in the Blue Jays, when you're looking at it from Blue Jays frame, with Danny Jansen healthy, you're probably getting Alejandro Kirk to start about 60% of the time. So, and that's why Alejandro Kirk is not in the top 250 in these rankings, because he is a catching tandem. You can get a guy like Adley Rutschman. You can get a guy like JT Realmuto, like you were saying. That's going to be a huge positional advantage for you. So that is my one huge takeaway that I would advise you guys to use in your fantasy drafts, is don't miss out on the top positional guys. Even if you do have to reach a little bit for some better talent, it's going to be harder to find these guys in the later rounds, whereas your outfielders, it's going to be a lot easier to find outfielders, pitchers, first baseman later on in your drafts, because they're, from a fantasy perspective, there's a stockpile of them.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I was a little bit, we haven't done a ton of baseball fantasy over our tenure here watching baseball. So I thought it was sort of interesting where, I've done probably a little bit more baseball fantasy than you have, but we have sort of the same thought process here. And I think most baseball fans that dive in deep to these positional stuff, and I mean, we dive deep into baseball every single day here on Locked On Blue Jays. So it is sort of interesting to see that our mindset is pretty similar going into this draft. Maybe I'll screenshot our draft selections, and we can go over them maybe on Monday or Tuesday next week and show you guys, so that if, you guys are going to a draft maybe Wednesday, you guys will have sort of like a base knowledge of where some guys are going to go, especially if you're Blue Jays fans as well and want to see some of the Jays bias that's going to be happening within our fantasy league. As you guys know, we're a huge FanDuel is a huge sponsor, and Prize Picks as well. So we will have our betting guru on tomorrow, Mr. Skylar Peters. He will be coming on. Coworker of mine, huge Blue Jays fan, another guy within the sort of media outlet here. And so he just has a very good insight into baseball, sports in general. We're going to have him on from time to time. He will co-host once in a blue moon when one of us are unavailable, barring, hopefully nothing terrible happens to us, but in the sense of having to take a week off, whatever, Skylar's going to be there. He's going to be our go-to guy, and we're pumped to have him. He will be here tomorrow. We'll sort of probably have to bug him about what he's going to be betting on the next few days. We want to thank you guys, of course, as always, for watching. Carter, should they check out that streaming channel, you think?
Yeah, perfect opportunity. I think you guys might be into college basketball a little bit more than I am, and this is why I would need an expert to let me know on what's going on in these tournaments, because I do not know a lot about college basketball. I stick to my MLB, NFL, and NHL. But if you guys are like me and you don't know a lot about college basketball and you do want to kind of get into this betting scene with Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy Sports, or FanDuel, or you just want to watch for your own enjoyment, go to the Locked On Sports Today channel on YouTube and subscribe to our first ever 24/7 national streaming channel. Just before we headed out, I want to say thank you guys for watching. We have noticed that around 85% of you guys aren't subscribed. So if you guys are coming back to watch the videos anyway, just subscribe. It's free. It helps us out a ton. And we are going to be excited for baseball coming up. And we are doing our fantasy draft the day you guys are watching this. I do wish I picked either 7 or 5 so I could steal a lot more of Braden's players. Hopefully I can still do that in our drafts coming up. But we will let you know how that goes, and we will drop our teams so you guys can make fun of our selections a little bit. So like I said, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys tomorrow.